competition.
We go. Welcome on. New York State Racing Parimutuel Wagering and Breeding Law, Section 212, which establishes the New York State Franchise Oversight Board, provides that the board shall consist of 5 members. The presence of 3 members would establish a quorum, allowing the board to undertake action. This present meeting of the Franchise Oversight Board is now called to order. Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Franco? Mr. Higgins?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Town? Mr. Williams?
Here. Mr. Secretary, you'll please have the record reflect that a quorum of members are present, thus enabling the transaction of business. Member Franco advised that he was conflicted today and he was not able to participate. Member Town is in an Albany meeting and headed up the Northway and anticipates being here in a few minutes. I'd like to recognize the participation of our colleagues from the New York Racing Association who have joined us for today's meeting. Dave O'Rourke, the Chief Executive Officer and President. Joy Garner, the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary. Glenn Kozak, Executive Vice President, Operations and Capital Projects. Renee Postal, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, and Rob Serace, the Director of Capital Projects. We also have on the phone with us today 2 individuals from Genting New York LLC, or 2 individuals who are representing Genting New York LLC. Adam Richardson of the Cordo and Company firm, which is an Albany-based government relations and law firm, and Hogan Lovell's partner, Ross Moskowitz, who has a substantive understanding of the entire Resorts World Seeker process. Minutes of the board meeting conducted June 13th, 2025 have been provided to members in advance. At this time, I'd like to ask if the members have any edits, corrections, or amendments.
None.
Hearing none, the minutes as circulated are adopted. Given that Mr. Town has not yet arrived and we only have one item today that requires a vote, which is item 3's resolution, I'd like my fellow board members' indulgence to take item 4 in advance of item 3 to afford member Town the time to arrive and be part of the item 3 consideration. Any problem with that? No. So item 4 is some miscellaneous reviews. First is Belmont redevelopment project. Practically, I think the Franchise Oversight Board would like to get an update on the development, the timeline about project spending from the last time we spoke to date at a very high level, and ultimately a little bit of an overview on the contracts that have been executed, let, or completed. I think we'd also like to discuss again at a high level minority-owned, women-owned business utilization, service disabled veteran-owned businesses utilization, and general workforce mobilization. Afterwards, I'd also like to walk through the status of some quality of life projects that we've spoken about previously, and finish the miscellaneous review section with a light discussion of the Cornell Ruffian project, which I don't believe we've talked about before. To walk us through the Belmont development project, Glenn Kozak has prepared some materials for us to take a look at. Mr. Kozak, if you'd be so kind.
Very good. Let me just grab IT. So if possible, Rob Serace can give a quick overview of some of the spending to date and where we are with the projects as you had mentioned, and then we'll just we've got some slides to go through and give an overview of the entire track project and the timeline that's taken place to date from when we started this in 2021 for the $100 million that have been spent for the racing surfaces, the tunnels, and the improvements that have been made down at Belmont. Yeah, why don't we go, if it's okay, if we go through this and then we can go through with contracts and values and where we are in the future bids. So this is the overview of the tracks, as we mentioned, with the fourth track being added, the synthetic track at 1 mile, the 2 turf courses being installed at a mile and a mile and an eighth and a mile and a quarter, widening the 2 turf courses, with the main dirt track staying at a mile and a half. In this view, you'll see on the center lower section is the grandstand tunnel that leads from the infield directly adjacent to the western portion of the new facility. The dotted line is the new clubhouse and grandstand. So that's the 310,000 square foot facility. If we travel to the east or to your right facing the screen, that's the horse tunnel access that will get us from the barn area and from the paddock with direct access to the synthetic track without going over any of the racing surfaces in the wintertime, and also will allow training in springtime use as well. So the Tapeta will be able to be used year round for us. The tunnel to the north is a commercial tunnel and a pedestrian tunnel that we've discussed. That leads directly to the new Elmont stop that's adjacent to the Emerald lot. And also that provided commercial access for all of this construction work to take place while we were still operating at Belmont. And this is just to give you an overview of what you're about to see.
So practically, Glenn, if you just clarify, so the tunnels that have been, that we talked about last meeting in June, and can you just identify for everyone what that
Sure.
one was?
And that particular tunnel is what you see on the bottom portion on the left-hand side. Rob will point out, is just, that's the extension
So
of.
that's the curve that we were talking about last time.
Correct. And that is, again, the tunnels were designed in a manner where there is direct flow from the north lot to the grandstand as well, clubhouse. And because of the proximity to the building, as well as creating a fire lane accessible path above and on the apron, we went with the tunnel extension with Contact doing the work that did all of the other 4 tunnels that were all bid out. So we stayed with the same manufacturer as well as the same installer of those. So that is all complete. You'll see when we go through some of the slides. The other thing to point out on this is the irrigation pond that's on the western portion of it. That's roughly 15 million gallons of a lined irrigation pond. We're currently applying for a well permit through DEC for a minimal usage for just our irrigation for the 4 surfaces that are out there, as well as the landscaping area of the 20 acres in the infield. Adjacent to that building is actually the pump station for all the irrigation. So all the blue lines that you see around the track are irrigation components for the racing surfaces for not only the turf courses, but also the synthetic surface. So
like drainage?
That's actually to irrigate, to put water down. So the irrigation, the drainage, I didn't bother you with that because there's about 4 miles of drainage that is just under the surfaces. But the main point on this is the 2 lines that you see on the front stretch are the laterals that bring the water to all the surfaces. So when we do our tour later on, you'll see the upgrades that have been made at Saratoga, but the improvements that have been made for the irrigation here will allow us to irrigate much more efficiently, provide better health for the surface. The old irrigation lines were 4-inch lines. It would take us 5 to 6 hours to water partial courses. When we were done racing on a day like today, where we wrap up at 7 o'clock, there'd be manpower here water until midnight. Watching irrigation in the dark isn't the best scenario for a racing surface. So this will allow us to put roughly 250 to 300,000 gallons down in an hour's time. So, I mean, it is set up to handle not only for, and the reason for that is when we discuss maintenance on the tracks is to get the proper amount of water in enough time for it to be able to get into the surface rather than sit up on top. So what you've seen on some of the races here where we get that sudden downpour and then we're forced to run on the course because it's not enough to cause an issue with the track. It's the damage that it does with a firm surface with water sitting on top. That's the whole point on being able to get enough water out as quickly as you need to. And if we have to put 10 minutes out in the morning to maintain levels during racing, we'll have the ability to do that.
Irrigation pond, currently do you have an irrigation pond at Belmont?
We did not. Everything was all well water, city water city water that we have. We do have a supplemental city feed, so that way, if we did have an issue with wells, we always have that capacity. And basically, with the 15 million gallons, that gives us 2 weeks worth of storage to be able to irrigate what we would need.
Irrigation pond part of the redevelopment project, or is that a separate project?
It's part of it. It's part of it, and that's done and complete. And we actually did that a year ago. And when we go through the timeline on this, where we basically, once we established our access road into the track, and this is the north, goes back to 2021 where we started. So when we discussed this, the piles that you see on the sand on the right that's from the work that NYS did up in the Emerald lot adjacent to the track. And the reason I point this photo out is the proximity to the racing surface. So
There's a couple of members that may not
sorry,
be here
okay.
at the time, like NYS is New York Arena, which was one of the entities that helped develop the arena at Belmont Park.
So while the upgrades were made to the drainage and the parking and lighting adjacent to the new Elmont stop, which is in this area, is when we commenced with the access road to get into the track. So this was taking place while we were racing at Belmont through the end of October in 21. The outside rail of the track is that green fence line that you see. And then this is the area that we had to excavate basically 35 feet down adjacent to the track to get the retaining walls in place while we trained into October. Knowing that this retaining wall was completed through springtime, we did our normal race meet. After the race meet, when we went up in July to Saratoga, we stripped the racing surfaces. And the reason I point this out when we go through the tracks, sequentially what took place to be able, we know when we were only going across the racing surfaces for the commercial tunnel and the pedestrian tunnel, all of the products had to be put back in like condition. So the rest of the track is still intact. So we can't have a different spot on the track that drains differently. So there was significant care that was taken to take all of the materials that were going to be replaced. So you see the topsoil on the inner turf courses that's being secured, the turf that was stripped off of here, and then that's the actual outside rail of the track. That's the main track that you see with the yellow sand underneath it. So all of that material was stored on site. It was secured separately so that way it could be put back in place. In addition to all the work that was done there, we set up fencing on the track so that way we would allow our trainers to continue to train on 1.25 miles of the 1.5 mile track. So we'd allow turf training. We tried to limit the inconvenience to our horsemen by modifying the area of operation, still allowing us to do all of this work. So drainage, teletimer, irrigation were all affected by what we did going across for this initial install.
Good. Could you just go back to the diagram again?
Sure.
I apologize for my ignorance on this. So the main tunnel that goes in, not the horse tunnel, it goes in, you see the semicircle, well, come back.
Yep.
The semicircle. What is that?
That is just an open area that just shows the grading.
Okay.
So there's 20 feet of grade change from the top of the racing surface to the lower level.
And the little, on the sides of it, around the right side, inside.
Yep.
Is that
Drainage.
That's drainage?
So when we go through you'll see that's part of the stormwater mitigation for the quality of life projects, where there's 200 dry wells that are throughout the infield. All of that material, all that stormwater used to go to the Belmont sump, which is adjacent to barn 61. This eliminates almost 90 acres of stormwater that used to go into that area that now stays in. If you notice on the plans as well, the 6 different little ponds, what we've done is that's the stormwater that comes off the dirt track. So the silt and the clay that come in off of the dirt track are contained in a sand area. So that way we can constantly maintain the top level, still allow percolation. Everything for the 200 dry wells are what's tied to the turf courses as well as the synthetic track. So that's part of what gets filtered, what gets refed back into what will be the well permit to refeed the irrigation.
It's also illustrative of how large that project is.
It's so again, that just to put in perspective with what we were doing, these are the tunnel sections with a manufacturer out of New York. Yeah, all cast and all prefab. They come in modular units. What you're looking at, this is the perspective from the south, from the north looking south. They basically come in as like a Lego set with the base goes in, it's cast in place with the base with knee walls, and then the arches are what get placed on top. So you'll see this is the rebar and that footing. That's what will tie into the tunnel. So there's tractor trailer access.
You don't really have a good element of, and my eyes are terrible, but if you could point out just for illustration of the size of these.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yourself, you don't quite understand the scope.
So this tunnel right here, the height on this is 18 feet tall and 32 feet wide. 2 tractor trailers can pass in the tunnel. And the
Obviously.
Yeah, 53-foot trailers can get in there. So any future activity or use in the infield will be able to access through this area. And one of the reasons why this was made that wide was not only for efficiencies, but because of the grade change with the trucks going down. If we did like other jurisdictions that just have a single tunnel, if that truck got down below, it would have to back up. It'd be, and for efficiencies for what product was going in and out for the construction, we had one chance to go underneath the racing surfaces, and we've modified the tunnel to make it wider. In addition to this tunnel, you can see the pedestrian tunnel that is at a different elevation. The reason that's at that different elevation is for ADA compliance to get to the parking lot. So we'll have ADA compliance coming from the parking lot to get into the infield. Once you get into the infield, that tunnel will break to the western portion of the track at an ADA compliant grade. And then the trucks will have access, or vehicles will have access to go to the eastern portion and get up to a perimeter road around the track. So we've tried to take into account that now vehicles will never go over the racing surfaces, but also for the efficiencies for any future use out in the infield, we're set up for it. This is the tracks going back together. So again, as I mentioned, this is in November that we put the tracks back together with grading the turf courses back. The sod went down. We blanketed the sod. We finished that up in early December, and we raced the Belmont Stakes the following year at that track. So this was a significant first step for what we're dealing with the track reconstruction. After that was complete, now we've got access for all our equipment to do the work in the infield. So we set up a perimeter fence on the inside of the turf course. Racing resumed. Work was taking place during training because of the proximity, how far we are away from the tracks. You can see the grade changes on what we had to move on the track with the new design. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of yards of material that were moved on site just to be able to establish not only the new height elevations of the racing surfaces for drainage and for the engineering required, but also for visibility of stacking the 4 surfaces together. This is a better perspective of what the grandstand, the commercial tunnel and the pedestrian tunnel from the infield looking to the north. The sod stripping that started to take place on the track. So again, all the materials that we were taking off the track were we blended on site using materials, importing some of the sand that was required for the custom blending for the new engineered mix that we came up with. The lower level, you see the infrastructure that's being put in place for not only power, but also fiber, and also for cameras around the entire infield. So in between each of the racing surfaces, we have a camera system every 1/8 of a mile that we're able to monitor the tracks, not only for our TV production, but also for the stewards to be able to monitor the racing. Now we're jumping on to the eastern portion of the track. This is the horse tunnel. So underneath the surfaces, this is all taking place while, again, we're training and racing at Belmont. So this is in the infield going towards the northern portion of the southern portion of the track. You can see this is almost a 27-foot elevation where the horses come out at a 9% grade. We worked with different firms for the design on this, as well as what's used in different countries that have this style tunnel access. So you're looking at from that retaining wall towards basically barn 7 at Belmont.
Just take 1 second. Steve, can you have the record reflect that Jim Town has arrived?
Finally, I apologize.
For purposes of the meeting, because of there's only one item for vote today. We've switched the agenda a little. So Naira has agreed to go first, and we're talking about the Belmont redevelopment at this point, and then we'll take item 3 up afterwards. Thank you, Paul.
Sounds good. And now at this point, again, while training is still taking place at Belmont and racing, we're starting on the grandstand tunnel. So that's the infield of the grandstand where that big hole is in the center. Again, the grading for the express footings for the tunnel, as well as dealing with, we had to relocate Ruffian. So Ruffian was exhumed very tastefully, got her back to Claiborne Farms, and because of the location of the new track. So that was one of the other challenges in that area. Here is the grandstand tunnel going in place, same design and same construction methods as the other 2 tunnels. And you'll see the building starting to come down as well during this time period. On the left-hand side, the proximity of our road access in the overview of the tracks, that entire wall had to be, that roadway had to be sheathed, steel plated, pinned, so that way that retaining wall will stay intact while the construction of the horse tunnel access was taking place. And then that will be a future where that fence line that you see is pedestrian access to the blue field or east lot for parking, as well as access up to the clubhouse.
Glenn, did the diagram show where the grandstand tunnel is or not?
Yeah, it does have it on it. Yeah, and it shows that little, there's another diagram that we'll get to.
Do you, in your deck right there, if you could pull that out?
Yeah, and I can get copies of this as well for everyone.
That way you can take a look, and Glenn could, or Dave can identify it.
That's the grandstand or that's the.
This is the north lot.
Okay.
The grandstand.
Where's the service station?
Up by, stop.
And
And that's the horse tunnel.
the
So we're
pedestrian,
showing it right now. It's very good.
thank you. The pedestrian access is also tied directly to, for the pedestrian tunnel is tied with the walkway that is illuminated, that goes right through the parking lot from the Long Island Railroad Station. So it'll be direct access off of the train through a pedestrian walkway leading right into the location. So the engineers worked on the location of that to sync with what was done with the work that New York Arena Partners did. This just shows the retaining walls to the grandstand tunnel. Again, shows the size of that tunnel, 42 feet tall, 42 feet wide, 16 feet tall. We'll have pedestrian access on either sides, as well as access for, if we wanted to, electric vehicles to access the front of the building. So if we did want to set up either electric trolleys or trams from the train station to the west entrance of the facility, we have that capability. This is the retaining wall for the horse tunnel heading to the north. So coming out of the tunnel, this is what the horses will go up to get access to the synthetic surface. The building that you see on the top right-hand corner, that's the pump station and the lined irrigation pond inside of that. That pump station goes down 35 feet. It's a chamber that's 16 feet by 10 feet, 4 vertical turbines, 120 horsepower each to be able to water the turf course. So draws the water from the bottom of the pond and it goes out to the mains for the irrigation. The building coming down, and the next steps are, what we thought were important here is the synthetic surface. So what you see with the synthetic surface here is all the drainage that's installed underneath the track, similar to what you saw with the turf course, road base, extensive draining, similar to what you'd see on a sports field. Every 15 feet, there's a 6-inch drain tile, then 6 inches of number 2 stone, porous asphalt, and then you see the structural mats that are over top of the racing surface, underneath the racing surface, over top the porous asphalt. The reasoning for that is at other jurisdictions that have used synthetic surfaces, the maintenance is coming to an issue where the implements used for maintaining the track go through the surface, hook the porous asphalt, and compromise the porous asphalt. Here, these are interlocking grids that are basically set up like parquet flooring. The reason the asphalt does not have structure, doesn't have the fines in it to give it's as much water. We put a fire hose through that with 6 inches of water. It flows right through. So it's over 30, it's just designed for a separation or a barrier between the drainage that's underneath that. And we just thought that the demo of the building, that's the last shot on the western portion of the grandstand. So this is what started to take place this year. Again, more of the utilities that you see going in place. So that is the ring that I mentioned that goes around the high voltage that comes in from the north lot to feed 5 different electrical locations around the interior part of the track. The green unit that you see is a custom blender that's used to make the turf course mix. So we had 3 engineers work with us with the design for the mix. With that material, the stuff that you see on the left-hand side is the old surface that came off of the turf courses. So that was all screened down to 1/4 of an inch. The other blending material that's next to it, and the reason we went with this unit, it's made over in Ireland. It's custom fed. It's 2 computerized units that are scaled, so that way you take the complete operator error out of this. So it accounts for moisture in the surface, the weight for the blending with the ratio that we were looking at. So we had to blend 65,000 yards of material, and at $100 to $120 a yard, doing it in-house and reusing and coming up with a blend was a significant savings for the project.
Glenn, you might want to, like, why is the blended blend?
Yeah, and
for a turf track.
so we're looking for the stability of the surface, so that way in a dry condition or a wet condition, it's able to handle the weight of the horse, have the ability to support that horse's hoof, but then also be able to drain appropriately. So with the turf course, when we get to a couple of pictures of the turf course, similar to the synthetics, there's a base, there's a drain tile every 16 feet on that. Then on top of the drain tile, there's 4 inches of drainage stone and 12 inches of this engineered soil. So there's enough soil for the stability. Any moisture, when we get significant rainfall, will go through the surface, get into the drain, and go out. We've got the old turf courses didn't have any drainage, was a very, very rich soil. So we're looking for a balance on something that has that stability, but then can handle, we're going to be racing in April, we're going to be racing in late November. So, it's not a pure sand-based course like some of the other jurisdictions have used. We raced on Belmont for a heck of a long time with a product that has worked well. We just improved that product with what we've engineered here.
And you sort of came up with that yourself?
No, not ourselves. I mean, we have 3 engineers that work with us for it,
Okay.
as well as racing surface
It's that
testing
this
lab.
much of the sand, this much of the
Exactly.
dirt.
But
That's actually the,
yeah, and with that,
It's almost like chemistry.
to that point, you know, and again, the experts are able to go through with the type of sand, the size of the gradation of the sand, and even the type of soil that we had for that blending ratio. So again, we stayed on the lower side of it. We didn't go too rich with the natural soil that's here, because again, we're looking for the stability, and also we're gonna have the luxury of having a synthetic to be able to go to. So for the health of the course, the synthetic is gonna be incredible, because we get that half-inch rainfall where we're not forced to run on the course, not forced, but we don't run on the course, do the damage on the course. Now we're gonna have the ability to go on and keep the health of the grass in much better shape.
Excuse me, is the track composition the same all the way across?
Yes, it is.
There's no modification made with respect to the railing?
No, because the rail when we get to it, you'll see we increased the size, Mr. Town, with the courses. So the course became smaller but wider. So we went from 1 5/16 and 1 3/16 to 1 1/8 and 1 1/4. So now we've got basically 102-foot wide turf course and 118-foot wide turf course. So and the difference with these racing surfaces is that they're consistent with all the way around. The old surfaces were similar to Saratoga, much tighter on the turns, and unfortunately, that's where most of your wear happens, on the turns. So here we've got a consistent rail move that we're able to go through, but the percentage, we've got 2% on the straightaways, 4% on the turns, and everything is consistent across the surfaces. And similar to that point, the old Belmont racing surfaces were built in a different era. So you had different types of product, different types of natural sand or clay or areas, pockets throughout. That's why when the grading, everything is consistent from the bottom up on this thing. So there's no area that will drain differently because of either a hedge or a heavier soil that might be in place in a certain area. The the irrigation that you see on the right-hand side, that's one of the modifications there where you see underneath all the racing surfaces, because of the pumps that we're using and the size of the pipes, in those 6 areas where the irrigation goes underneath the racing surfaces, everything is encased in a line pipe. So meaning the ductile iron is pushed through another pipe with casing spacers. So God forbid there's ever a blowout. There's never a blowout on the racing surface. It's always inside another pipe.
Pretty well thought out.
In this other,
Go wrong, we'll go wrong.
yeah. And to your point with that, the valves that you see at 12 different points throughout the track, there's valves to be able to isolate the track as well. So that way, if we're changing heads or doing work on it, we don't have to shut the whole system down to be able to do that. We're able to isolate the valves on the portions of the track. These are, that's the finish line of the new track. So with the steel poles that you see and the transformer at the bottom and the fiber cabinet that's in place over there. So we've got a camera at each of those locations. You'll see on the picture on the outside is what was just installed last week. The retaining wall for the trough drain on the full length of the stretch. So all the water that comes off the dirt course goes into that drain, goes under the tracks, goes out to those sumps in the infield that we're able to maintain. The privacy fencing that you see on the left-hand side, that's at the western portion of the main track. So that's the outside rail of the main track. That's the new fencing that we installed that leads from the rideshare area up to the Long Island Railroad train station. So we elevated the fencing to go with an 8-foot high, non-scalable privacy aluminum fence for maintenance. And we thought it was a pretty nice product for what we were doing. You see on the tracks here, the progress that's been made. Safety rail on the main track. That's the outside rail that's the inside rail of the main track. Outside rail of the Widener turf course, and then the little white tabs that you see sticking up, those are the sleeves for the inside rail of the Widener turf course, outside rail of the inner, the other sleeves for the inside rail of the inner, and then the synthetic bolt rails are in on that as well. And this is probably one of the biggest steps right now is You see the dozer grading, and this is all done by GPS. We have a survey company come in behind our work with the equipment to go through to check the grades. That is the 12 inches of growing medium that's installed over the drainage stone. So that's the west end, that's at the quarter pole of the inner turf course. In 2 weeks' time from when that dozer was around, the bottom picture was as of yesterday. The inner turf course will be complete by possibly today, if not Monday, with all the sod on that.
That's just grass, right?
Yeah, not just grass, but yeah,
What's so special about it?
because that's been growing for now. The sod company wants to kill us, but that's been growing for about 16 months. So we're using a variety that is drought tolerant, wear tolerant, that was specific for what it is Kentucky bluegrass. So you're right, it is sod. But what we were also looking at is the profile that we engineered for it, that we're able to grow sod in a profile that matches that. So there's the interface between the root zone and the new sod, there's no roots hanging up because of the different type of soil or growing medium that it's in. So it is sod, but it was specifically grown for us in a region. It comes from Long Island. This sod is harvested at like 2:30, anywhere from 2:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the morning, and the trucks are starting to install at 7 o'clock.
Who is the vendor for?
We use Delia sod. They do Yankee Stadium, and the product is out east. So again, it's compatible climate. What you saw for the initial Belmont tunnel, because of the timing that we did that in late November, we had to get that product from East Coast Sod down in New Jersey, which is another Delia farm. But again, we always try and match the profile. And then the other thing that we're doing is they're cutting this very thin. So the root zone, just so that way there is that direct mesh. So watering is very, very critical. We're putting sod down when it's 90-some degrees. It's not
It doesn't
optimal.
rain anymore, so.
So we're trying to get the water going to this as well. So, but this was a big, big step for us. And now we're rolling right into the Widener turf course.
Are you using a new irrigation system for this?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, everything is, unfortunately right now, because we don't have power to the infield, it's all manual. So we can do generators, but there's still work for it's gotten so technical with some of the new heads that there's basically an IP address for every head. So, and now you're able to monitor how much water flow is going out on each head. At this point, where all the electric is not complete on it, it's a manual process.
The water source for the pond, is that a well? Is it municipal water?
Right now, it's currently municipal water, but we did apply for a well permit through DEC. So we're currently in the steps for that.
And do you have any sense about the aquifer? Is it going to be sufficient to replace?
It's the second largest aquifer in Long Island. And so we're told that volume wise, it's not a problem it's going through the approval process for it. And then the capability of the pond, the capacity of the pond is for a 2-week period to be able to water not only the 2 racing surfaces, but also the infield, as well as with this design, there's irrigation that's set up for the synthetic track as well.
Okay, substantial savings.
Yes. Yes. And this was taken a week and a half ago. So this gives a pretty good perspective of what the new building is, the tracks, the tunnels, the pond, and where we were with sod at that point. So you see the synthetic track that I just touched on, that's done all the way around the track except for our access point. So one of the things that, because of the amount of material that we still have to move, all the blending for the growing medium was taking place in the center of the infield. So we're hauling thousands of loads of that material to the surfaces. So that's why we've kept those access points open, basically like the 3/16 pole of the track. So the trucks don't have to go all the way around the track just for efficiencies. We'll be able to close that in probably late Q3 to be able to put those 2 points together. Similar on the lower portion of it, where you see an access road that goes across all 4 surfaces there as well. But it's fortunately, it's starting to look like a racetrack again.
Glenn, which one is the synthetic on that picture?
That's on that's the innermost track. You can just see the rail.
Okay.
And then you can see the black line of the, right inside the grass.
Yeah, and is that the turf course going in after it?
Yes, that's what you saw. The turf course, it goes synthetic, turf, and then dirt on the outside.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's a good illustration.
And as I mentioned, all those little dots that you see around there are the dry wells for the drainage of the surfaces. Then I also did not point out the different spurs for the different distances on the turf course. One of the things that we changed as well with the width of the courses, before on the 1:16 inner turf course, you used to have to start on the widener, go over the crown, go into the inside, go back over the hedge. And, it wasn't the best scenario. So now our starting points on all of this are set up where it's all on one course. The 1.25 that will be used for the Breeders' Cup Classic, instead of that being an afterthought into the rail, it was actually an engineered area that is set up where it breaks more to the center of the turn rather than what the old, with moving the finish line. We moved the finish line about 126 feet, and I'll get the exact measurements, so don't hold me to that, but roughly 126 feet to the east. It allowed us to gain 5 more distances because, again, the widths in between the tracks have all been contemplated so that we maximize our distances for all of the racing surfaces, meaning the 5 or 6 different running lanes that we have on the turf to be able to accommodate those and maximize those. Is what we were able to come up with. So there's a little bit of a give and take while you see some bigger areas, again, around the outside of the turf course on the eastern portion. Those are all drainage areas for the main track as well. That just, again, it goes into natural sand that we maintain right there. Then the building, we'll jump into this. So this is the, and then Rob can go over contracts and money if that's all right, or how do you want to, keep going with
Yeah,
this?
why don't you go through and
Okay.
with the building and then we'll move on.
Okay, sounds good. So what you're looking at is the elevator shaft that goes up to the top floor, the 5th floor. They're currently on the 3rd floor right now doing the concrete and the steel. 2 cranes are set up. So the one crane on the eastern portion of the track that's adjacent to the marshalling yard is just doing the concrete work. And then his other crane is just handling all of the steel. So this is on the western end of the portion of the track where you see those yellow roll-offs. That's the access that goes to the infield for the pedestrian tunnel. So that 42-foot pedestrian tunnel is adjacent to there. The opening that you see is access for us to be able for product and supply for the backyard and the infield to come out of the facility.
A timeline for this, Glenn, by any chance, of where you're at, when you expect to have the building completed?
Yeah, and we can go over that. I mean, right, just again, generic numbers right now. So concrete will be done for the 3rd deck by the end of August. Steel will be wrapping up again the end of September for the framework, and then they'll be doing curtain wall.
So the installation of the curtain wall will begin in Q4 of this year.
So we'll be, again, roofing and everything won't, specifically be dried in by the end of Q4, but it's going to be darn close. And we'll go through the timeline on it. But again, the way the 2 crews that are working on this, they're working in different areas of the building. So one's not getting in one another's way. And the steel work that you see, that's basically 2 weeks worth of work that went up. So they're doing anywhere from 6 to 8 trailers a day. They're doing a fantastic job.
The building's being constructed from west to east. So as the concrete guys move east, the steel guys follow behind.
And you gotta go up 2 more levels?
That's the top level there.
Oh,
So,
it is?
Yep,
Okay.
so that's, from the back of the building, looking over, but that's the height, and the top stair tower that you see, that's the elevation that the roof trusses will go to. And what they're going through, again, these are a couple days old now. You can see the Q decking that they're putting on each of the levels. So they'll start to be pouring the concrete in September, and maybe even sooner. But again, as Rob just mentioned, they'll be chasing from west to east because the concrete company will be, the cast in place company will be out by August. They'll be able just to follow right behind them. And this work that's taking place as well, this is the front apron. So you're looking at this from basically like the track side of it. We're almost on the outside rail of the track right now. Oh, sorry. And then what you see is this is the looking from the backyard, from the excuse me, the western portion of the building. The pine tree is behind that white van, and these are the two plazas that are currently being built on the back side of the facility that overlook the walking ring of the paddock.
Just want to go back to the basement.
Yep. I go the wrong way. Yeah, went the wrong way, sorry. This precast will be showing up in September where you see the step down that, again, that'll be taking place after all the steel framework is up, and they'll start to pour that Q decking to lock the building in, and then that precast will be on site to install that as well.
This is just to give you an idea of all the MEP work that's done in the basement. It's almost all complete. So this is our first floor that's going to be ready to be turned over. But just, all the MEP work is basically done at this point.
What is that mean?
Mechanical,
Oh,
electrical. and plumbing.
mechanical. Yeah, I would have said.
So this is the paddock. So the racing office is staying. That's going to be redone and repurposed for racing operations. The pipes that you see being installed right now are for the new paddock that's out installed. So just to give you a perspective, the racing office will be a racing operations building, and then the walking ring will move a little bit to the eastern portion and again closer to the building, and a much bigger expanded paddock than what we had previously.
Want to go through this first?
Yeah.
We might have to remind you of some of the cool points that we go through, but we'll start with contracts. The job is about 95% bought out right now. So all your core and shell, your interior fit out, your paddock, that's all bought out. There's one remaining package that Tiffany's going to fit out, and that's the exterior site work. So as far as contracts, we're 95% of the way there. To date, we've drawn down about $111 million. That's broken out between about $73 million in hard trade costs, about $32 million for the CSIP, and $4.3 million for construction bonds. Some of the other non-construction related expenses, NYS funding, so that's your design fees, builder's risk insurance, general conditions, and the CNC. So that's where.
So that's when you look at some of the materials that we have, you'll see occasionally a split between the allocation of monies. Sometimes it says NYRA, and that's what you're referencing there.
Correct.
That's what
And,
you're paying.
it's the non-construction related expenses. So mostly all your soft costs. Our third funding request has been submitted on June 30th.
June 30th.
Yep.
That's for 116.
That's correct. So that's under review right now. As far as MWBE update, so right now we're still looking pretty good with our M's. We're hovering between 14 and 15%, right around our target. For the W's, we've seen an increase since our last meeting. Right now we're at about 9%. And then for the SDVOBs, we're at 3%. So that's where we're at right now for some subcontractors that have been awarded.
I did see that that's trending rather dramatically up in the last couple of.
Yes, we did have a pretty significant W that joined the project, so that helped us there.
Can you identify who that is?
It's the roofing company.
That's fine. Don't dig for it. I know I went through and looked. There's quite in just my back of the envelope, there are a lot of W's that are coming in at this point.
Yes, and that's just who's been enrolled in the portal, so there's still more to come.
What was the project that you were looking for? What percent?
The targets were 15 for M's, 15 for W's, and 6 for the veterans.
Any consequences to be significant lower than?
It's best efforts, and we do make our best efforts. So if we're struggling to find any M's or W's or veterans, we reach out directly to the state. They have their state directory and they send us a list of vendors. So we add them to our list. But Tishman does a great job following up, reaching out, emails, phone calls, all that's documented. So we are making our best efforts to hit those targets.
And it does appear as if they're going to hit everything. One thing that I didn't see, and I think it's because it's logged over at OGS, is the SVDODs. That doesn't come in the LERO material that we get.
Okay, that does not, because ESD is in charge of the
ESD,
M,
I'm sorry.
is in charge of the M's and the W's. And
Michelle's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about?
OGS handles the SVDODs.
So what were those numbers? Because I don't really have insight
SVDODs
into
were
that.
3%.
At 3%?
Yes.
If you want us to start doing it.
No, it was just more of a curiosity at this point. The only thing I would want to see is if we think we're not going to actually hit the numbers, then maybe we'd want to see the backup for it to illustrate how it's flowed over a period of time. But again, as I said, just my loose going through the materials, there does appear to be quite a bit of all three that are coming in now and being listed. From a practical standpoint, is there anything that we should be concerned about relative to the spending? I know that's been in for nearly a month at this point. As far as the drawdown off of the new 114? 116, there's 114 originally. No concerns on timing at this point?
We
Obviously, you would love to have money today.
We need to see-
When does it become critical is, I guess?
I would say sometime in mid-August.
Okay.
We would need that money. Obviously, earlier the better.
From the monitoring the traffic that I've seen so far, it's just a standard review. There's nothing of concern. It's just a matter of going through the materials.
I believe we're supposed to get an update next week.
Okay.
The request was made on June 30th.
Yes.
The request. Anyone have any questions relative to the contracting pieces of it? Right, let's move on to,
Can you just go over gate 5 if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah,
With the
sure,
electric, I know Mr. Town, you brought that up before with the electric out of gate 5. Just to give you an update on that, NYRA has taken over some of that work. So self-performing some of the excavation, the conduit installation with a local 25 contractor that's under NYRA's purview. It gave us a little bit more efficiency working adjacent to barns 1 and 2 with the proximity. So we were able to do some of this work outside of training hours and not impacting overtime. And happy to say that we're well on our way with the project, looking to install concrete in the next 2 weeks, and will be significantly under what the proposed budget was. So,
should we move on to quality of life projects? You want to give an overview on it as opposed to me mindlessly working my way through it?
sure, if you don't mind, I took some photos and give you just an update of where we are in timelines and what's completed and where we'll wrap up.
I think what can be useful, because we have a couple of members that are more new than older. Unfortunately, Victor's not here. So when we're talking about the dormitories, you've made a tremendous amount of investment in the backstretch, both towards cottages and some dormitories that preceded the quality of life. So if you can even touch a little bit on that, I think it would be helpful for people to, the concept of building the 3 new dormitories was supplemental to a lot of work that is already undertaken in the backstretch. And I think that's something that you might want to give a little insight to.
Before we do that, could we clarify, when you use the word older, it wasn't age-wise, correct? Want to check.
Sure, so at Belmont, we did take on a significant upgrade of the 85 plus cottages that were in the backstretch. When we refer to a cottage, they're just units that could be anywhere from 2 rooms to 20 rooms. So with that taking place over the last 8 to 10 years down at Belmont, new roofing, new siding, new restrooms, new windows, electrical upgrades. So we went through all of the cottages.
And while it's not a physical investment into the building, there's a lot of landscaping that occurred as well for both flooding mitigation and also nuisance animals that you're eliminating as well. And that was substantial, because again, a lot of the material that you ended up having to put around some of these when you're talking 80 different facilities.
So we put an asphalt apron, improved drainage, drain leaders, screens on all the windows if the units, they didn't have screens before with the upgraded windows. And as Mr. Williams pointed out, so landscaping, you'll see some of the photos where, now sod's been installed, sprinkler systems have been installed, just an overall upgrade. And what we're looking to do when these new units come into play and operational, we will stay at a number of roughly 1,000 beds at Belmont. And with some of these other units, they will be repurposed for some of, whether it's veterinary use or whatever it might be, for office space that could come out of the building it makes practical sense for them to be on the backstretch. So we will be repurposing some of these units that we invested capital into.
Yeah, again, just to put a little bit of additional emphasis, dorms 1 and 2 we're not going to talk about, but can you give it like an overview as to when those were developed and how big they were, and how, at the time of their development, it changed the concept of the way that you were housing people?
Yes, we've, as Mr. Williams pointed out, we've consolidated the dorms in specific areas that are close proximity, not only to the rec hall, but also to the track kitchen and access to egress from the property. So located near Gate 7 at Belmont. The first building, I'm losing track of numbers here, but probably 8 to 10 years ago when we did dorm 1. And that's a 3-story facility. And the other thing was building these in locations that were usable space that also got the most efficiencies for the construction method. So the first dorm is a 3-story dorm. First level, second level is all women, and then a third level that just goes to grade. There will be a photo that you'll be able to see that's just a blue light system that's attached to the dorm. And again, now that there's Wi-Fi in these dorms, that room, that is roughly, and again, don't hold me to this off the top of my head, but roughly 60 rooms over in that facility, 138 beds in that facility, individual restrooms in each of the rooms. And that's one of the things that is a change from Saratoga or even some of the Belmont cottages, is having an individual restroom in each room. We found that the damage has been much less. The maintenance has improved significantly, where we've had minimal maintenance to do to these facilities. We've designed them in a manner for our trades to be able to construct them. And after we completed dorm 1, we moved adjacent to that and did dorm 2, which is a 2-story facility that, again, there's roughly 100 beds for round numbers, and I can get you the specifics on what's been done. But a 2-story facility, again, individual restrooms in each one, air conditioning, heat, laminated floor, epoxy flooring. They're nice units. Then after the loan was from the state for this redevelopment with the quality of life improvements that are ongoing, we decided to do dorm 3 adjacent to that area as well. So we knocked down a barn that was in rough shape. So we were able to put this new unit in that, again, is about 112 beds, single floor, center aisle for access for mechanical and all of our trade use. And we improved the blue light system on that unit as well. And that was up and operational for August of last year when we got the CCC for that unit. We're currently on dorm number 4 right now, that we're waiting for some showers that were being made up in Canada that we've been waiting for a couple weeks now on those. I hope to have that thing wrapped up by now, so that's the real holdup for it. We can't get the units into the rooms. We can't close up the windows until we get the shower units in, because we've tried to design a unit that is a one-piece unit for maintenance, for, we've had very good success, as Mr. Williams pointed out 8 years ago, doing all the other cottages. That's the style. We've tried to keep all of the products that we use consistent, so that way we're not replacing. It's like in kind. And then we'll work on dorm number The final dorm, we're looking at a couple different areas that the architects are working on right now that foundation work would start this fall.
And the last dorm is another 100-bed, right? Somewhere around
Depending, yeah, it might be a little less depending on the room side, depending on whether that could be assistant trainer usage.
Oh,
So that's what the architects are coming back with us for a couple different options on that we'll review as well.
as far as the cost goes on each of those, I know that there's, overall, you were, what, 10-1 on the 3 dorms? How's that been holding?
Yeah, that's all, we're
Especially given the cost of everything that's changed.
yeah, fortunately now it's going to be where it's cookie cutter with what we're building. We'll be on budget.
That was one of the goals.
Yep. Keep it consistent, and with the architect that designed these, it is an architect that's a Saratoga-based architect that works with us down there. And again, knowing what our internal workforce is for carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and steam fitters, is designed in a manner that we can do it in-house. Because again, we're building a facility adjacent to a barn that there's horses training and going through. So again, for the efficiencies for us doing it, it makes a lot more sense for that to be internal labor that's used on that, internal union labor that's used on that.
Is there any projections?
No, go ahead.
Is there any projections on the savings with respect to repair and maintenance by having each room have its own bathroom facilities?
We can, it hasn't, all I can go by is knowing work orders that come in on this, but we've been to dorm 1 a handful of times in 8 years, you know. We don't have the damage, we don't have the plumbers going back to clog pipe for the issues that we run into at the other. Because I think, you know, again, it's their space,
That's
if something happens.
not to
you
be
had
aggressive
success.
relative to that, but there's a responsibility. We now know, you know, before you would have a communal bathroom that was serving 6 different apartments, if you would. Let's change.
And we've also included in all of the facilities, bed frames, underbed storage, mattresses that are designed for the use. So it's worked out well. It's worked out well.
When you said for dorm 5, you're considering space for assistant trainers.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we're going through, and again, we'll look to see what size and what will be more like an efficiency. So one of the things that, you know, we hear the feedback that we're getting from other jurisdictions is because of where we are in the cost of living and what rental is in the area. So it's one of the things that, you know.
This is not something that's brand new. You've been talking, and there's been some language in budget requests over a period of a decade that has kind of a assistant trainer, or that's the house we're going to redo, or we're going to and this is just an outcropping of that.
Correct.
But the main element is just cost of living in the area, right?
Yes.
Availability, housing stock, and costs. And trying to procure trainers to keep horses with us. It's all part of the equation. Even all of these norms are, you know, different types of workforce that we're supplying housing for. Essentially small businesses.
Yeah, and I'm going a little far afield on this, but right now, as a general sense, if a backstretch employee wants housing, there's a methodology for them to be able to get housing. It's not you don't have enough for you, go away. Presumably, you would have greater demand than availability for assistant trainers. What's the methodology that you utilize to select that?
We haven't even got to that point yet. So I mean, that's been the discussions with our, yeah.
We have the horseman group as well.
So,
Do assistant trainers house at Saratoga? I didn't think so.
no,
I didn't.
no, it's,
Do they have Belmont currently?
no.
Okay.
No, and that's one of the issues that, you know, even in the communities around us, just with what the rental costs are, comparable to Maryland or Kentucky or some of the other jurisdictions. So we're trying to look at what, and again, one of our,
It's a consistent drum beat of feedback you get from the horsemen. In-house.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to entice them to come run with us.
so we'll have a couple mock-ups on that hopefully by the end of the summer to go through.
Now, you'd originally had dorm 5 as being residential housing for backstretch. So is there any contemplation of subsequent building if you replace that with trainer?
I think we'll have to look to see what our inventory needs are, because with the other dorms right now, I mean, we're gonna have almost 600 new beds of what we've done, so, and I think with what we'll go through with the repurposing of the current units, and get a better handle on what the need is.
Did you have slides? that
Yeah, I did, if
accompany
you don't
some of
mind.
it?
Yeah, I'll go quick, so I don't wanna bore you guys with,
None of the support ones.
So this is dorm number 3 at Belmont on the top with a plant with the grass in the front of it, as I mentioned, 2-sided, center aisle just for our mechanicals, and dorm 4 is on the bottom. As you see, we're as far as we can go till we get the showers in, but that's adjacent to Hempstead Turnpike, so it's certainly cleaned up from what was previously there.
What's the percentage of rooms that are being utilized for 3 occupants as opposed to 5?
I have to get the number from security on that, but, and I think it's trainer dependent on how many rooms are allotted. So depending on a specific trainer A that's in specific barn, this is located, and we've tried it, so the concentration of the new dorms are currently around the track kitchen, as I mentioned. This dorm works out well where the trainers that are in some of the newer barns now have access close to their work area. The Wi-Fi, fiber, and blue light system, I mean, I know this isn't real, it's just, these are the fiber cabinets that are throughout the whole barn area. So now Wi-Fi is accessible through every dorm, all the cottages, the rec hall, kitchen, and that is complete.
How's the effectiveness of the Wi-Fi? I mean, it's been traditionally extremely sketchy.
Yeah, and again,
Have there been any complaints or concerns that have been raised?
have not, and we continue to modify and have the ability to add access points for specific areas. So if there is a location that isn't getting enough coverage on it, we have the ability to add another for that. But at this point, we have not, in the last 3 months, we have not had any complaints with having to add infrastructure to it. And this also gives us the ability for security cameras throughout the entire backstretch complex as well, with the fiber backbone that's in there. In addition to the Wi-Fi, it also allowed us to upgrade all the fire alarms at every barn and every cottage through the facility. So
Yeah, there are a lot of beneficiaries for this project, both the individuals that are living back there who now have greater and more consistent access, as well as your ability to undertake business and contact the horsemen a little bit cleaner as well, I would assume.
The other thing that we've completed, and we're just waiting for the architect of record for Northwell to supply some documents for OGS to close this out, is the improvements at Northwell Clinic. So that operates Monday through Friday in the backstretch adjacent to Barn 59. It was an expansion for some laboratory area, some record keeping, and another exam room, as well as the airflow, changing some of the ductwork for what the requirements are for Department of Health.
So my recollection is Northwell provided some of the materials. What was the value of their contribution to this?
Probably close to 60,000 with what they did, and our labor on that is probably a little bit under that number of what was done. And but it's up and operational. We're just waiting for the final closeout from their architect of record.
Is this free to use
It's not. It's
or subsidized?
It's subsidized, yes, but it is for all the backstretch. But and as far as
Through the best program, isn't it?
correct, correct, yes. And Northwell has been a great partner with this. So going back to COVID and what took place with what they've been very, very helpful with the improvements that have been made in the backstretch.
It focuses on primary caregivers. So they basically know all the patients. Like when we first, 15 years ago, it was kind of haphazard. So this is kind of the culmination of the effects of this are incredible, and Beth could probably share that over the course of the last decade in terms of hypertension, diabetes, all those kinds of diseases. So help us get on track.
Again, all those little dots that you saw on the overall site plan, these are the 10-foot dry wells, 20-foot deep, 200 of them throughout the entire infield of the training track. of the main track.
If I could just go back, I know we talked about it in the construct of the Wi-Fi and also in the dormitory, the blue light, just to skip over that. It's subsequent coming up. Okay.
Yeah. So this, again, as I mentioned, the drainage from the tracks and also from the north lot. Perimeter fencing, this is the fencing that's installed from Plainfield through Hempstead Turnpike. That's all complete as well.
That's now completed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, we have one area at Floral Park that we're working with the town, just near some of the neighbors where we have to take some trees and some vegetation down to wrap that up.
How's the integration with the neighbors going? Because that was, obviously one of the issues. That wasn't a NYS issue, but it was, you were the recipient of the complaint.
It varies. Some are very, very happy to see new fencing and a view, and we've tried to accommodate not taking trees down in specific areas.
This fencing is helping with that other traffic issue as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, that's been great. So this is the blue light system that Mr. Williams had mentioned. So they're strategically placed around the barn area throughout the entire backstretch. The building on your right is dorm number 2. And then you'll see a couple of the other locations that are just adjacent to the barns. And then this is at gate 6 as you enter into the property. But again, that's all set up with the direct access to our security booth at gate number 6, 24-hour monitor.
When's the completion date for the blue light?
Done.
Oh, it's already done? Okay.
Done.
Because I thought the permit was just issued in May. Wow,
That was well, the fiber, we were able to just hook the fiber because what was issued with that was the concrete bases and the actual installation of the blue light system itself. So that, as you mentioned earlier, having the fiber for not only the cameras, the fire alarm, and the Wi-Fi, being able to use that was
different beneficiaries to that whole project.
exactly. This is again adjacent to dorm number 3, the bike storage area, which I'm happy to say is getting a lot more use than what I would have thought. So they initially there were only a couple bikes on it, but it is getting the use to instead of storing them in front of their room or out in the open, it's working out well.
From a practical standpoint, that was a real issue for fire egress as well. Not in the newer facilities, but in some of the older facilities where people would keep it in their rooms or in the hallways. So that's a good potential. You moved one of those, right?
Yeah, we still have one more to do. So we've got 2 done. We have one more to do in between dorm 1 and 2, and then we'll do another one by dorm.
As dorms.
Correct.
Come on.
Yep, and
So
we're
you wouldn't be doing a 5th one if you used dorm 5 for that. I'm assuming the assistant trainers don't get on bikes.
right. And we the gymnasium improvements, this is not the equipment that's being purchased, but just a representation of the area that's in the track kitchen. We're currently just started in the track kitchen, taking the roofing off, doing the foundation work, and that'll be an ongoing job that takes place while we're up here at Saratoga to be wrapped up in September. But they did do some of the flooring, some of the aluminum diamond plate that's on the walls just to protect the walls from the weightlifting equipment. But that area will get upgraded, heating and air conditioning in it, as well as the LED lights that you see just in this area that have been installed. That's what the rec hall will look like when it's done. It's currently just a brick facade building with old slate that was in need of repair. So new windows, new HVAC system, new ADA compliant curbing and sidewalks around the structure, and they're gutting the facility.
Wow.
And
When was the last time there was a substantial renovation of that? That's my answer.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
34.
Would that be considered old?
And that covers the 10 topics for the quality of life.
That's fine.
Can I ask a question? Sure. You engage with your insurance carrier to make these improvements, and do you see a reduction, for instance, in better fire systems, et cetera, a reduction with respect to the premium?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And then going forward with respect to the quality of life, I ask you to consider whether or not you should have some system set up where you're engaging with the people using the facilities in a proactive way rather than reactive to complaints. In other words, what are they looking for? What would make their lives better, et cetera, rather than dealing with somebody saying the windows don't open.
Agreed and understood, and we do have that conversation with a couple of the groups that will between, whether it's BEST or whether it's a chaplaincy group. So we have a couple plans to be able to present to the FOB over the next 2 to 3 years for what improvements we look to make, or whether it's a soccer, different ball fields or different areas for recreational use, as well as what's taking place there.
You may not remember, but I've always had a mild interest in your relations to Saratoga with just historical preservation. Do you have any projects that are anticipated in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years? And the reason I'm asking is, as a part of that process, it may be helpful to have somebody annoying like me or Rob, not annoying, go to those initial meetings to explain actually the relative legal strengths or weaknesses of each party's position.
There are. We do have a couple projects that'll be coming up after we complete the Belmont work and Belmont Stakes for next year, now that that's been determined to come up here. So the first would be some work in the saddling stalls in the paddock. And that would probably be the biggest right now that we'd be looking to do up here. And then the minimal work that's going to take place in some of the units that are still, and there'll be restroom facilities that we already have permits for in the backstretch. But absolutely love to bring you up.
Once we're complete with Belmont, I think a barn strategy is, when we start looking at macro like scale, that would be the top.
But I think from a practical sense, I think what Mr. Town is suggesting is when you're having those initial conversations with Saratoga Historical, we'd like to be at the table.
Before they trap you into
Much appreciated.
agreeing to
I
interesting.
understand the state while we're up there, any of this stuff.
That's part of the conversation.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
That's part of the conversation. It's, Jim is being coy relative to it. There's perhaps a misunderstanding of roles that we want to realign as well, but not discounting their input and their consideration, because obviously they're thank you.
I'm just trying to state my position in a less unpleasant manner than I have in the past.
But I do believe, we started a little bit of that by offering, Jim and I did with some conversations, but I think it also helps before we get to a position of considering projects is being there at the front end. So when you have even if it's a consistent and formalized conversation with them is, here's the amount of money that we have or projected to have for up here. Here's projects that we're considering. We need FOB approval. That's why they're here. And they're going to talk about our spending of that and where those guys intersect as well. And I think that's something that we want to do on the front end. And I think probably all of us would be interested in participating in that.
Be very helpful.
Witnessed at all like reduction in the workforce on the backstretch? Just given some federal actions that are taking place in the state,
Touch base.
Yeah, not so much yet. No, it hasn't. I mean, their best is heavily involved with everything that's going on.
this is private property. So you can't just walk on it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of activity here, like after racing with donating meals and whatnot, to keep folks on property.
Correct. So Best does dinners actually every night that are performed to keep the backstretch community on property. For that exactly.
Following this little.
Yeah, and we're here to assist them in which way,
Yeah.
keep folks on site. So,
The fund is.
This is something new that nobody really anticipated last
Right.
year.
Right.
Yeah, but we did have some plans from a couple of years ago. Well, thanks to that, because maybe a different administration, but it's the same thing.
They have a handle on it, as best as they can, and it hasn't presented an issue on track.
Okay.
Today.
One week of the day.
Today.
Anyone have any other questions about the quality of life items? We have not discussed it at a franchise oversight board meeting as it doesn't implicate state lands. And the funding is apparently through, I believe, NYRA's charitable foundation, but I want to raise some attention to the project. And what I'm referring to is the Cornell Ruffian Research Project that was part of the governor's executive budget this year. Obviously, the grandstand development is for NYRA and the patrons of horse racing in that regard. The quality of life, we're aiming at the individuals who are in the backstretch, and it's for the backstretch workers and the individuals who work there. In addition to the changes to the racing surfaces, including a move to the winter polytrack utilization, it's the Cornell Ruffian project that's for horses. And that's really kind of the goal off of that. They said in the enacted 25-26 state budget, there was some funding for some advanced research to be undertaken at Cornell Ruffian Equine Specialist, which is a hospital that's located across the street from Belmont Park. The law obligated NYRA to participate with the purchase of some advanced imaging equipment to the equine hospital, while the state was to provide some operating funds for the initiative, totaling approximately $18 million over the 3-year period. Functionally, majority of the research is an attempt to refine risk factor assessments for fatal musculoskeletal injuries in thoroughbreds, building upon work that's been already conducted, academic work that's been conducted in Hong Kong, Australia, and the University of California at Davis. I understand that NYRA has undertaken some some discussions with John Piggott, who is the hospital director at Cornell Ruffian. And we're starting the process of at least formalizing that and getting to a good spot relative to the equipment and also the MOU and the flow of monies relative to this. Is there anything that, Mr. O'Rourke, that you want to add to talk about NYRA's participation and any expectation regarding the academic study? I know it's something that you guys, NYRA was very much pushing for this 2 years ago before we stole it.
Well, I mean, looking at the investment in the tracks and the thought that was put into it, when dealing with safety, there's many different aspects, but the one piece that this allows us to for lack of a better term, tackle would be imaging. And so we've had some discussion with Cornell, and we're pretty much staged, just ticking some boxes to make the required donation. And in terms of the actual aspects, I haven't seen the actual play out of how the program will work. Dr. Piggott's working on that, and that'll probably be the next phase. But right now, it's the beginning of the procurement of the equipment, and we're staged. We'll probably make that donation the next week or so.
Obviously, there's an element of that particular research, at least a component of that research, that does expect some NYRA cooperation. And that's the identification of the horses that are housed at NYRA racetrack, at Belmont, utilization of some of the data capture points for training purposes, which is not something that we've done. We've had that the stride right type devices being utilized on race days, but not necessarily in the training. But that was an element of rollout as well. It's going to require us being the state working cooperatively with NYRA to ensure that there's an understanding of the horsemen as to what the expectations are, what they are obligated to do by way of housing their horses for training at Belmont, and also just allaying some of the concerns of what the project is and what the project is.
Yeah, the upside of this is the access to the imaging equipment for the horses. A game changer for people, and the results of the study are going to lead to improvements in all sorts of aspects that we can, in terms of the tracking, you're matching it now to the skeletal imaging. You're starting with the 2-year-olds. So once the Cornell group has their plan and they've laid out, my anticipation is that we'll add NYSA to this discussion and figure out how to get this implemented, because we're all in. I mean, this is excellent. We've supported this for several years. We're extremely grateful for the state that it's done now, and we can get this equipment.
Great. like I said, it's not really something that's FOB related, but it's very important in the construct of everything that's happening at Belmont. This is extremely significant for the horses.
Oh, for sure.
I just want to clarify for the record, though, that it isn't funded out of the charitable foundation.
Yeah, I wasn't certain on that.
Sorry,
That's why I
it was
kind
not,
of.
it's a non-refunded. We, when we did the budget, we had HISA's original assessment. We've revised the assessment since then, and that will almost completely fund that.
I mean, honestly, coming out of the foundation would still be appropriate as well,
Right,
considering what the
exactly.
goals are. It's-
About $2 million.
But the reduction in the HISA fee was almost 1.7. So
Outstanding.
Is that not finalized?
for this year, it's finalized, yes.
From a practical standpoint, our next thing that we're going to do is now go back to item 3, which is the only voting item that we have. You guys are welcome to stay if you'd like. On the other hand, this gives you a great opportunity to bail out.
Thank you.
As everyone seems to be comfortable with that, I would like to talk to you if you have like 3 minutes later today.
Yeah, of course.
About actually the foundations and some other stuff.
All right.
You're totally unrelated, no, it doesn't matter.
Use the call.
And if I don't see it today, just sometime I need to talk.
Yeah.
And what Dave,
Jeff,
Jeff
and
and
monitoring do you do with respect to outside contractors coming in? Property, substances used, things like that.
As far as,
Well, I'll give you an example because it's, I know you're aware of it, but I actually took care of the trees here for 2 years.
Yep.
You did. Do you remember the elms they had? My job to check.
you took care of it.
I did.
back when those elm trees were young.
Yes, and I was younger. But my question was, we used to use all kinds of what turned out to be very dangerous chemicals, like chlordane, all this stuff, resulting in incidentally, as an aside, in brain tumors. So that's taken care of. But there was no protection. There was no respirators. There was no protective gear at all. That's what people did back then. But they're doing things now too. I mean, certainly in the last decades, things have changed dramatically with respect to the health of the workers. But they're on your property. And do you do anything regular checks with respect to manifests, for instance? Are they bringing in chemical on premises that need to investigate often? Are you checking that? Or you just sign the contract, they made all these representations, you're out of it?
No.
Part of your bidding contract
It
itself.
is, and as part of that, and also with the insurance requirements on what they're doing, but to the point of any applications or anything, because of the horses that are here, anything that's sprayed either on the surfaces or on the trees, for our, like the shrubs when they get treated for mites or anything, that's done through either the 2 different companies that we use. And we will check on that it's a certified applicator, and then also with what products are being used to go through with Dr. Palmer. So that way, whether it's weed control or anything that we have, there's no issues with the products being used with the horses for safety, not only for the horses, but also for our employees that are out there as well.
I'm concerned about the employees or the subcontractors.
And so the company, so with the spraying of those ornamentals that are done out in the infield over here, I have not checked on that as far as the trees and everything through the properties. There's no spraying that takes place on that. So it's been a company that comes in to review the health of the trees and then either prune or remove what dead limbs there are.
There's no preventive work anymore with respect to
There has
insects, et cetera?
There has not been at Belmont, there has been with the lantern flies that were down there, and also at Aqueduct where we received complaints from some of the neighbors in the area. So we did take it upon ourselves to bring in, I believe that was Davy Tree that handled that.
They did the work here?
Yep, so,
That was me.
yep, okay, so that, but as far as the application for what's done on the track, we know what product is used as far as the employee safety of it. I will get back to you on that.
Hey Glenn, can you email the slide deck for the Belmont update?
Absolutely.
Over?
I think that would be helpful.
I'll get it all.
Yeah, I'd like to get that over to the.
Yep. Okay, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Quality
pretty
life stuff
helpful
and everything,
information,
so.
because we're gonna come down there in October, I think.
And I was gonna say, the offer has been out there
Yeah,
for,
I think we're trying to schedule
Okay.
something for all of the FOB members
Awesome.
to go down and.
that'd be good.
I'm doing, I have to say, you've done an incredible job, the whole team does, but especially you with respect to, imparted more information than I ever thought I'd receive. It's very helpful.
One of the most meaningful things, and we didn't actually talk about it today, is it's still on schedule. period.
On budget?
Yeah.
On budget,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
budget and on
budget,
schedule.
And the nice thing, to Mr. Williams' point, is that we'll be training on the track this fall, and we'll be on the main track next spring. So, I mean, it's.
Which people were not aware of.
No, and that's why I say, I know it just looks like when you mentioned comment about the sod, that for us, for that big step of that turf course being in a year before a horse even steps on the course.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Tapeta.
Is that down?
Yeah,
Oh, it is.
we're down 3/4 of the way, and I didn't make it clear enough, and apologize. We still needed access around the perimeter of Tapeta to get to the turf
Turf.
course.
Okay.
So we were putting in the irrigation, we were running the electrical lines, we're running the fiber, we're running the power in between each of the courses.
On that slide, is that the actual color of it?
Yeah,
It's
it's white.
white gray?
Yeah, it's like gray, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it darkens over time, and so we have all the product that we're gonna use for the tracks is already on the track. Once the trades are out of their way with the irrigation, we'll put the drainage stone down, we'll put the,
This is a perfect time for a visit. There's a lot going on down there.
When you're down there, practically there is Tapeta that's installed at Belmont. And you really, from a distance, you can't tell that it's Tapeta and not dirt.
yeah, and that's been in for 2 years. So again, and I didn't have it on the slides, but just so, you know, when you mentioned about the engineering with the profile of what we've used, I could give you 1,000 slides on what we've got, but we went through and did a test plot for all of the turf. So that way we had all of our moisture sensors in there. We watched how irrigation affected, how the storms affected, how the heat affected it. So that way, if we had to modify the surface, we saw how it would be impacted. We had the testing company come out with a mechanical hoof tester, so that way it replicates what a horse's hoof impacts
Somebody
the
gets-
surface. So that way,
That's a
again,
niche business.
it's, you know, but again, you need to know, you know, after half an inch of rain, how stable is the soil, how fast does it perk, what is, you know.
I've been up here in a rainstorm and I've seen that stuff and it's not.
But it's
No.
actually interesting that the measurement of water moisture content in turf has changed dramatically in the last 5 years.
And remember, we're dealing with surfaces at Belmont that hadn't been touched in, you know, significant time. And as I mentioned, when we redid the surfaces, there were areas that were pure clay, areas that were pure bank run. So having even and consistent
Consistency
base
is the most
is
important.
critical. And that's why I'm so excited about the work down there, because you start from the ground up and, you know, with our union trades doing the work down there, we've managed that ourselves. We are in complete control of it. So costs, quality, it's all on us, you know, which is.
And from a practical nature, the reconstruction of that with your ability to monitor, because again, it's a huge facility. And the condition of the turf in one location may not be identical to the other, and the ability to be able to measure that and then adapt is substantial in keeping the consistency, right?
To your point, the front stretch of the old track, we used to have to, because of the shadow of the old building with the cantilevered roof, the growth in the springtime would be probably 3 to 4 inches less on the Widener turf course because of the shade that the course would get. So we started to implement using the growth blankets to put them on. Now it's something that we use on all the surfaces. And the one photo, when you saw the original Belmont, the commercial tunnel, we had 7 inches of growth on that course from just blanketing it and monitoring and going through it. But again, with the products that are being used and the drainage where the track never had the drainage like we have right now, it puts us in a real good position.
The artificial track you're putting in, is there going to be a measurable decrease in the amount of injuries?
Again,
Don't oversell this.
yeah.
Bring it up, when you mentioned clay, I frankly didn't realize, I assumed everything was rather homogeneous. I would assume horses coming around from a softer surface to clay, that's an area, a break area where you could suffer an injury.
Yeah.
Loss. So now you're gonna have uniformity, I'm assuming there's gonna be less. I still worry about my other notices is with the people who compete it. And trying to figure out how to lessen their angst about the animals.
And I think to your point, having the consistent material from the base on up, it's like building a foundation or a road. It's no different than what we're doing, having the correct products above that, where before we did not know what was underneath until we did the work on the course. So For years, we've been widening both courses at Belmont. We widened the courses up here to get maximum running distance, running lanes. And again, having the ability to move those running lanes with the increased space, it gives the health of the course. So we've positioned ourselves in the best possible way we can for safety and consistency with the horses.
You have the historical information, and I suggest maybe once this all gets operational, 2 years, 3 years down the road, publicizing that change. You know, we suffered 16 losses this too.
And again, you know,
A lot of that is really, it's so nuanced, Jim, because an injury is an injury. I mean, there are some injuries that are fatal, and those are the ones that get most of the attention, but you're a horse owner. You know that a non-fatal injury can be just as devastating to an owner, and also to not, because a non-fatal, that horse is not running back now.
And I think that's one of the things that we've been able to see with the data that you're suggesting on it, not only the injury side of it, but also just the training side of it. We've been monitoring at the pony track, how many horses on a wet track go from the training track and use the pony track. You can look at the charts just to tell you every day that it rains, but to see the increase in the numbers on what horses come off the training track to go to the pony track. And now that's been in play for over 2 years now. We've, you know, have gotten our maintenance crew familiar with the methods and the maintenance required for it. The horsemen now have that as a resource in addition to the other 2 jogging barns. So the synthetic has been playing a bigger role down at Belmont, and it's given us the opportunity to know what we're building in the infield. We know the drainage is right. We know the stabilization mats are right. We know the product is right.
But practically, it gives them another option when there are off tracks and any of the other stuff that was not available. And the option being exercised in some measure for safety concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If whoever wants a tour later on, I'll be available, and thank you.
Thank you. How do you want us to adjourn? Do you want?
Yeah,
be down here?
Yeah, I might right down the hall here. So,
Oh,
yeah, I'll,
Yeah, thanks.
whenever you're ready.
I don't know who wants to, I mean, I know I want.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thanks, Linda. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3, or moving back to item 3, which is consideration of resolution 2505 regarding the acceptance of final environmental impact statement and finding statement for Resorts World Casino Phase 2 expansion. Just a reminder, on the telephone, we have 2 representatives of Genting New York LLC. Adam Richardson from Porto and Company, which is an Albany-based government relations and law firm, and Hogan Lovell's partner, Ross Moskowitz, who has a substantive understanding of the entire Resorts World Seeker process. Also at the table with us today is Michelle Reel from Office of General Services, who has practically helped maneuver all of this through the system. Last month, the Franchise Oversight Board considered and approved a resolution that permits the video lottery gaming facility footprint at the Aqueduct Racetrack to be considered as a potential site for a gaming facility pursuant to Article 13 of the Racing, Parimutuel Wagering and Breeding Law. Our approval was duly conditioned, first on the completion of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act process for modification of the first amended and restated facilities ground lease, and the second upon the award of the New York State Gaming Commission of a gaming facility license to Genting for a gaming facility to be sited at Aqueduct. Today, we have an opportunity to clear the first hurdle, which is consideration and acceptance of the final environmental impact statement for Resorts World Casino Phase 2 expansion as complete, and to issue a finding statement declaring all seeker requirements for making decisions on this action have been satisfied. As background, the Franchise Oversight Board has retained the New York State Office of General Services, as I mentioned, Michelle represents, to provide various services, including technical expertise in reviewing the seeker-related materials. In connection with the proposed action, Genting, through its consultant VHB Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, submitted a Part 1 of the short environmental assessment form for proposed action, along with an EAF supplemental narrative. Subsequently, Parts 2 and 3 of the EAF were prepared finding the proposed action might result in one or more significant adverse impacts on the environment, resulting in the Franchise Oversight Board issuing a seeker positive declaration on July 24th, 2024. A public scoping session was conducted on August 14th, 2024, with comments accepted through September 6th. No public comments were received on the draft scope of work. Genting thereafter prepared a draft environmental impact statement in accordance with the final scope of work for the proposed action, which was reviewed by the board and OGS staff for content and completeness, and after several revisions by Genting responding to staff comments and edits, determined that a draft environmental impact statement was complete. Accordingly, a notice of completion for the draft environmental impact statement was issued on May 7th, 2025. Public comments on the draft environmental impact statement were accepted through June 6th, 2025, and 2 public comments were received. Genting, through VHB, prepared a proposed final environmental impact statement considering and responding to the public comments received. Board and OGS staff reviewed the proposed final environmental impact statement for content and completeness, and upon satisfaction, issued a notice of completion, which was published on June 25th, 2025. Subsequently, a draft finding statement was prepared in accordance with the seeker requirements to certify that the procedural requirements of seeker and city seeker have been met. Consider the relevant environmental impacts, facts, and conclusions disclosed in the final environmental impact statement for the proposed action, and weigh and balance the relevant environmental impacts of the proposed action with social, economic, and other considerations, and then set forth a rationale for finalization. Board members have been provided the draft environmental impact statement, including all comments submitted through the seeker process and responses hereto, and the final environmental impact statement. Are there any questions regarding that material? Board members have also been provided with the draft finding statement. Are there any questions regarding the finding statement? We're good. Great. Before us is a resolution which certifies that the proposed action minimizes or avoids adverse environmental effects to the maximum extent practicable, and that adverse environmental impacts will be avoided or minimized by incorporating as conditions to the decision those mitigative measures which were identified as practicable. Members, do you have any questions relative to the resolution?
None.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept resolution number 2505 to accept the final environmental impact statement and finding statement for Resorts World Casino Phase 2 expansion? All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Secretary, Member Franco advised that had he been present, he would have voted in favor of the resolution. I believe you have an email to that regard. Will you please have his indication memorialized in the minutes? Hearing no objection from Steve, we'll consider that. There are no new or old business on the agenda. Do members have any new or old business that they would like to raise? Before we conclude, I want to thank New York State Office of General Services Associate Attorney Michelle Reel, especially for her work on the seeker process. Without Michelle and OGS's staff, she's not one person, she's got a staff under her, our work would have been substantially more difficult. I have nothing further to discuss. Do members have any additional items that they want to talk about? No. Hearing none, this meeting of the Franchise Oversight Board is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much for your participation.
What's that?